join me at the workbench, and I've got a piece of timber in front of me here, and I'm going to make a thing called a longboard. And you think, well, what's a longboard? And it isn't the obvious thing. It isn't that, oh, it's a long piece of wood that's a board. It's a device for levelling out an area when you're sanding. This one, I've cut the timber to 2 feet long, which is about 61 centimetres. They can be any length, and they can be more or less any width. I've already cut this piece of timber, and it's to the width of a roll of sandpaper. Now this sandpaper it's 115 millimetres, which I think is 4.5. Oops, try again. Yes, about 4.5 inches. But the important thing about this is it's got to be flat. Before you do anything else, this must be flat. Otherwise, how can you create a sanded flat surface? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plane this top surface, get that dead flat, and then we'll turn it over and take a look at the other side. But not only does it have to be flat, we don't want any twist in it. Let me just point the camera down a little. Can you, I don't know whether you can see, but can you see how that's just rocking ever so slightly? So there may be twists there, which we also need to deal with. So the first thing to do is to get it clamped up. Now I've got a tail vise, so that makes it quite easy. But you can just use a stop on the end of your bench. That would work just as well. If you've got a jack plane or a longer plane, that's ideal, rather than just using a smoothing plane. The first thing to do though is to take a look that way. Is it flat across the board? So let's just bring the camera really down low and take a look, and let's find out if this one's really flat. Right. One way to check for flat is just put your plane onto the board, and can you see the daylight there? So we know that the centre of this board is high before we do anything else. So that's the first thing we need to deal with. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plane down the centre. Now I could simply plane the grain here. That's a very heavy cut. Let's back that off quite a bit. So we can plane down the centre of the board first. Not quite right with that plane. The plane is just, I don't know, just dragging a little bit. There's a slight camber on this particular plane, so that's much better. We're getting some nice shavings. Let's just check again. And we're a little bit high here. Now what I'm doing now is, although I'm planing the end, I'm also lifting the heel of the plane so it stops somewhere around there. Because I've got a slight hollow now here. It's only very slight, but it's there. And then I've got a high spot just around here in the centre. So I've got, from what looked like a flat board, I've got a very awkward piece of timber. One thing you can do is just go across diagonally. And that should flatten the board. Still a little bit down on that edge there. go along there. We're only talking shavings here. We're not talking huge distances. That's coming much closer to flat. Got a high spot along here. That end is looking pretty good. Let's just double check. Just double check how that looks. I think it just needs a pass just there. There we go. There we go. That is now flat. But have we got any twist in the board? And this is where the winding sticks come in. Basically place one there and one here at 90 degrees to the board. Now if you're no good at judging 90 degrees, get yourself a set square, just use one edge of the board and put it against there and put it against there. Now we're at 90, those two are at 90 degrees. They have got little centre marks on them, but that's not particularly critical. It just gives you an idea that you've placed them roughly somewhere near the centre. But I'm going to bring the camera right down low now and let's see if we can see any twist in the board. And as I look down this, I can see that one end is actually higher than the other. So there's a twist in this board as well that we need to deal with. So we've got a high spot here, and we've got a high spot over that side. So the high spots are along here and along here. So those are the two areas we need to concentrate on. But the winding sticks show you twice the amount of twist than there actually is. So don't go mad when you start planing here. Just take a little bit off. Let me just alter that on a little bit. We'll take that off there. We'll do the same on this side. And then again, place the winding sticks on there. These boards are cut square, so I can feel that those are at 90 degrees. Pop down low and look along, and that is a lot better, but still a little bit high. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm just going to take a small section off there. Not going to touch that corner. And these are literally 1 thou shavings that I'm taking here. And the same on this side. And I'll work my way across. And that should be enough now. Check again. Winding sticks on there. Winding sticks on there. And now that twist, that board twist that we had, has completely gone. As for winding sticks, maybe we can look at making a pair of these if you find that it's going to be useful. So the board is out of twist, but is it still flat again? Or have we got a... Yes, if I put that ruler on there, I can feel it's rocking ever so slightly, only on that side. So we need to just take a little bit out of the middle here. Mind that. Don't any dings in the blades. And that I think should have got that. So back again with the ruler. That's now flat. Flat across the diagonals, hopefully. Oh, no, it's not. It's flat that way, but it's not flat that way. And it's rocking just there, right dead centre. So there's obviously a little high spot just there. Oops. I meant to lift up then, I didn't do. I've got the throat very narrow on this plane, and it does have a tendency to clog if you're not careful. Still there. It's moved. It's more here now. Just try that. Yeah, I think we're good there. I think that's going to be flat enough. There is a little. Let's just. That's it. Double check that one again. Yeah, that's it. That's the one, we've got it. So this board is nice and flat on this side. So this is going to be our face. Now there's one other little thing I want to do with that. While it's clamped down. I'm just going to take a little block plane and just take off a little sort of 45-degree off each end. And you can see how useful it is when you can actually clamp a board flat like this. And this is a homemade tail vise. So that's possibly something else we could discuss, how you make your own. Because to buy them are quite expensive. Or to buy a bench that comes with one, they're very, very expensive. Right, so that's flat and we've got the ends beveled. Don't need any bevels on the edges. I might just, although I don't need a bevel, I'm going to take just 2 sweeps across there, just to ease the corners. There we go. Just to stop them breaking off, no more than that. Right, so let's flip this over. As for this side, this is literally just a working side, and we're going to put 2 handles on this. So it doesn't really need anything. But what I am going to do is, because I know this board was cut, is I'm just going to run the plane, because if I put the plane on here, there's a whacking great hollow all down the middle. So if I was to do this, I'd literally just be knocking off a little bit from each side. But what I am going to do is just ease these corners for no other reason than it makes it much more comfortable. That'll do. There we go. I haven't measured them, it doesn't matter, it's just to give you a softer edge. And again, a little block plane. Doesn't need any more than that. Obviously you could hold it in the vise and do this, you don't have to be able to clamp it flat to the bench. So that board's prepped now. What we need now are some handles for it. Now I've dug through the racks and I found this chunky piece of dowel, which is, oh blimey, it's 35mm, which is round, in fact it's just a bit more actually. It's about 37mm which is just 1 3/8, somewhere around that. That would make a good gripping handle, so I could just simply use that, because this is only for a one-off. Or I could take a piece of timber, go over to the lathe and turn 2 nice fancy knobs for it. Some people I do know will actually take the shape of a plane handle, the tote as it's called, this and put one of those on that end of it. So you've got a plane handle on this end, and they put a knob on that end. Now if you're going to use it for hours on end, and sometimes that is necessary, then making a fancy one that you can use over and over again is a great idea. But for me, I need this for a one-off. So all I needed was a flat board and some way of holding it as I slide it backwards and forwards. So I think we're going to go with a simple dowel, and we're going to drill into there and drill into there and glue them in. I think that's probably the simplest and quickest way to go. Question is, have I got a drill the right size? Just bear with me a minute while I go and check. Right, I've got out my collection of Forstner bits. I've got one that's just a bit too big, so that's obviously useless. And then this one, which is just a shade smaller. It's probably 2 millimeters, just over 1/16 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to cheat. I'm going to take this dowel over to the lathe and literally just take it down a tiny bit, and then we'll cut this in half and round over those edges and make some handles, because I don't want these to go all the way through. I only want them to go part way in, and they're going to be set at about that distance. I would think about 150 mil, 6 inches from either end should be about right. Maybe a bit closer actually. Let's say 100 mil. I've lost my little, oh there it is. My little, yeah, I would say 4 inches, 100 mil from either end would feel about right as you're pushing it backwards and forwards. So let's get this turned down. Literally just going to bring that in. Just a little bevel on that end. Well, apart from the fact that that one snapped, it's not the end of the world. Because it was... So, anyway, there we go. So I'm just literally going to use a bench hook basically. And just cut that off. I'm going to turn it round actually so it doesn't... There we go. And we'll get a bit of sandpaper and just sand the end. And that's good enough. Same with this one. Just bring it into there. And this is the cross-cut saw that we sharpened the other day. if you saw that video. That one was a much cleaner one. Right, so put that out of the way. And here's our board. So these are going to go sort of like that and like that. What we need though is a pencil and a ruler. And actually, find it again. Do you remember when we made the centre finder? We can actually use it on this particular occasion. What we need is a mark 4 inches from the end, 100 millimeters. So that's that. Same on this end. Let's use the end of the ruler, it's easy. There we go. That's somewhere close to the centre. So without having to measure where the centre is, I can put a mark there. There's our centre. Another one. There. And there's our centre. So I wasn't planning to use that today. It wasn't in any way planned actually. I'm just trying to remember. I hope. Yes, I did. What I didn't do was mark the face side on the underside. I just realised when I put those crosses on, I wasn't sure which was up and which was down. But anyway, we're good. So all we've got to do now is drill a couple of holes with my Forstner bit. I'm not going to go to the drill press for this because we're only going in a centimetre. So I'm pretty sure we can judge a centimetre. What I am going to do though is put it in the vise because I don't want it trying to spin around on me. It's always difficult. I've never actually found a really good way of centering a Forstner bit. And of course, the one I've chosen had to be the one that's blunt. But anyway, I'm going to reverse it just for a second, just to get rid of that. And there we go. Got a nice clean hole again. Let's double check the other one. Yep, we're good there. So I need to basically glue these into position. In fact, I think it'll be easier just to put it on the dowel itself. You do want to make sure it's well and truly glued though, because obviously dragging this board backwards and forwards. There we go. There we go. Just wipe the excess off again. Yep, that's well seated down. So there's our longboard. But in our case, our longboard's about 2 feet long. Okay, I've got some double-sided tape. I'm literally going to put it. It's not wide enough with 2 strips to do the whole thing, but the edges don't matter that much. They're not. They won't be coming up easily. There we go. Because this is 2-inch tape, but the sandpaper is 4.5 inches wide, so it's a bit of a pain. There we go. Of course, if you've got paper that's already got adhesive on it, then all the better. I actually need the 80 grit first. not the 120. I'm going to leave a little bit over on each end. There we go. That should be fine. There we go. Just turn it over. Just use a steel ruler. Don't use your cutting knife to cut sandpaper. It'll wreck it. And then what I'm going to do is I've got a staple gun, but you could tack it. You could do it whatever is easiest for you. But that'll just keep that end in place. Flip it around. Same thing again. And there we go. Now I've got a longboard and I can now sand and know that any high spots will be hit, but any low spots will be left. And when everything is sanded to the level I need, then I'll know all I'm left with is the hollows that will need refilling. And you'll see where all this filling and sanding things come in just a second, but we've got to go down to the boatyard for that part of it. Okay, right, and this is what the longboard is actually for. It takes off all the high spots. I'll keep working along like that until it's completely finished. Anyway, I'm David. I hope this has been of some use to you. You never know when you might actually need one of these things. And it's a very useful extra bit of kit. And of course, our centre gauge actually came in handy on a practical job. You take care. Bye now.